Pisces, the week of July 26th to August 1st, 2026, brings a full moon landing directly in your own natural territory. And it arrives with a real question about where your time and energy have actually been going. On July 29th, the full moon lands in Aquarius, conjunct Pluto, in your 12th house of rest, the subconscious and spiritual life, forming an exact opposition to the Sun's rare conjunction with Jupiter in your 6th house of daily work and health. The lunar nodes shift axis the same day, with the North Node also entering your 12th house. Saturn stations exactly retrograde on July 26th at 14 degrees Aries, joining Neptune, your own ruling planet, in your 2nd house of money and values. Several of the year's biggest astrological storylines converge within these 7 days. And for you specifically, they circle the same underlying question about whether daily obligation has quietly crowded out something your sign genuinely needs. Let's go through what all of this actually means for your money, your relationships, and your energy, using the real sky, not generic guesswork. Money and career reach a genuine turning point this week, since Neptune, your own ruling planet, sits retrograde in your 2nd house of money and values, and Saturn stations exactly alongside it on July 26th. This is a significant transit specifically for you, since Neptune governs your entire sign, and its presence in your money house has likely brought some fog to your finances over recent months, an unclear sense of what you actually have, what you're worth, or what you truly value versus what simply feels comfortable to believe. Saturn's station here demands real structure around exactly that fog, and since it's your own ruler being asked to get honest, this carries more weight than a typical Saturn transit through this house would for another sign. This is a good week to actually look at your numbers plainly, rather than continuing to operate on a hopeful, imprecise sense that things will work out. Mars in Gemini, meanwhile, sits in your 4th house of home and family, giving you decisive energy to handle a domestic matter directly rather than letting it linger. Early in the week, while the moon sits in Capricorn, your 11th house of friends and goals, a conversation with someone in your circle may offer a useful, grounding perspective before the bigger financial reckoning fully lands. Pisces tends to feel money as a mood rather than a set of figures, which is exactly the pattern this week's Saturn-Neptune pairing is asking you to interrupt. Pull up an actual statement, instead of trusting the general feeling of abundance or lack you've been carrying around. A single honest hour with real numbers this week will settle more anxiety than another week of vague reassurance to yourself. Relationships move through a practical, detail-oriented lens this week, thanks to Venus in Virgo sitting in your 7th house of partnerships. This placement favors showing love through concrete acts of care rather than grand gestures, small. Reliable follow-through will land better with a partner this week than sweeping declarations, even if a grand gesture feels more natural to your usual romantic instincts. An exact Venus-Mars square on July 28th into the 29th adds tension, though Mars in Gemini, your 4th house of home, squares Venus in your partnership house, suggesting a real pull between what a partner wants from you and what home or family currently needs. If you're partnered, be honest about which one is getting shortchanged this week, rather than trying to quietly satisfy both at once. Since Pisces' instinct to smooth things over for everyone at once often means no one actually gets what they need in full. If you're single, this square might show up as feeling pulled between wanting to invest in dating and needing to handle something domestic. First, it's fine to let the domestic matter take priority this week without treating it as a failure of romantic effort. A partner is more likely to notice one reliable, completed task this week than 3 half-finished promises made with the best intentions. If the tension between home and partnership does surface, Say the actual conflict out loud rather than quietly absorbing both demands and hoping it resolves on its own. Small. Specific honesty will do far more for the relationship this week than trying to appear effortlessly capable of holding everything at once. Energy and health are where the real story of the week lives, and it's a particularly fitting tension for you. The full moon on July 29th lands in your 12th house of rest and spiritual life. Conjunct Pluto, an exact opposition to the Sun-Jupiter conjunction in your 6th house of daily work and health. This asks you directly whether your daily routine has been serving your well-being or whether work and obligation have quietly crowded out the rest. Solitude and spiritual connection your sign genuinely needs to function well. Pluto's presence adds real depth. This isn't a small, passing tiredness. It's a pattern worth taking seriously, possibly one that's been building for months without a clear moment to address it directly. Give yourself real, undisturbed quiet this week rather than treating rest as something to earn only after every task is done, since that particular bargain rarely actually pays out for a sign as prone to self-sacrifice as yours. A day, or even just an evening, with no obligations attached to it at all, would do more for you this week than an equivalent stretch of productive rest disguised as leisure. There's a longer story underneath this single week worth naming briefly, and it's an unusually fitting one for you. The lunar nodes shifting onto the Aquarius-Leo axis lands the North Node in your 12th house of rest, spirituality, and the subconscious, and the South Node in your 6th house of daily work and routine. For the next 18 months, your growth edge actually favors returning more fully to your natural inclination towards spiritual and inner life, rather than the more familiar, well-practiced pull toward duty, service, and constant productivity. This is a somewhat unusual nodal instruction compared to most signs, since it's not asking you to stretch towards something unfamiliar, but to return more fully to something you already know, but have been quietly deprioritizing in favor of being useful to everyone around you. This week's full moon is the opening note of that longer chapter, arriving with enough weight that it's likely to be felt rather than simply noted in passing. So here's where this actually leaves you, Pisces, heading into August. Neptune and Saturn are asking for real honesty about your finances and values. Venus is asking you to show love through steady action rather than sweeping gestures. And the full moon is asking whether rest and spiritual connection are getting the same attention as your daily obligations. None of this needs solving all at once, just a genuine willingness to let rest count as real, rather than something you only permit yourself once everything else is finished. You've likely built a quiet talent for sensing exactly what everyone else around you needs before they even ask, and this week doesn't ask you to lose that gift only to turn a little of it back toward yourself. The version of care that actually lasts is the one that includes you in its scope, not the one that runs until you're empty. Let this week be the one where noticing your own tiredness counts as just as valid as noticing someone else's. If this reading resonated with you, hit like and subscribe.